Okay, ladies and gentlemen, take one. We are live here at the historic Pine Hill Cemetery, where some of the original people that migrated here in the 1900s reside permanently. We have some of the Sims, the Cubulises, Grays, so many different people right here in this historic cemetery. It's absolutely quite interesting, the history of this cemetery. And we're going to tell the story of this cemetery. Going out that way. We're at the historic Pine Hill Cemetery, where we got some history that we want to show you all. It's beautiful history, but we want to talk to you about it. We want to show you some of the historic parts of this city, in this town. So this interesting Pine Hill Cemetery, located in the Pine Hill area of Pasco County, West Pasco. This is where the African Americans were told they had to live. The only place in the county where they could come. This tract that we're walking is a tract that I used to walk when I was a little boy. My family migrated here in 1924, and this area was predominantly black. My great-grandparents and their families all lived here. It was almost like the Black Rosewood, I would say, of this side of town. We have all this amazing history here, and it's beautiful. But there's something about this cemetery. It's a military cemetery where we have soldiers buried as far as the Civil War, Indian Wars, World War I and II. And it's a lot of history. But there's not one black person buried here in an area where only black people could be. Interesting. So we're going to tell the story. We're going to look up some of the amazing history of some of these people. Stay tuned.
This cemetery was once nestled on the back roads between two small coastal communities. Those small communities exploded with development and became known as the cities of Port Richey and New Port Richey. The cemetery came into existence in 1916 when the ladies of the New Port Richey Civic Club saw the need for a cemetery in their own town. They began seeking local property to establish this cemetery. George R. Sims, one of the community's prominent businessmen and property owners, generously donated the 2.2 acres where the cemetery was placed. Mr. Sims also helped with some of the early business decisions made regarding the cemetery. On November 26, 1916, the Tampa Morning Tribune reported, "Through the efforts of the Women's Civic Club, the Board of Trade is taking steps to secure 10 acres of land for a cemetery. The tract under consideration is about halfway between Elfers and New Port Richey and near the Dixie Highway. It is high oak land, slightly rolling, and when improved will make a very beautiful resting place for the dead. It is the plan for the communities of Elfers, Port Richey and New Port Richey to purchase the land and form a cemetery association. Committees are being appointed to complete the plans and to incorporate the association." A notice in the Dade City Banner of October 5, 1917, stated that an application would be made to Judge O.K. Reaves on November 5, 1917, for a charter incorporating the Pine Hill Community Cemetery Association. The women listed as the original charter members were Minnie Broersma, Lonnie Clark, Alice Davis, Jennie Leach, Emma Rowan, and Nettie Sheldon. On March 27, 1919, the Port Richey Press reported that the Cemetery Association called a meeting to discuss and devise means for putting the cemetery area into proper condition. The association stated that their cemetery property needed to be cleared and fenced. They also discussed the plots needing to be laid out with stakes at the corners of each, for the purpose of later locating and identifying them. According to a February 16, 1920, Port Richey Press article, New Port Richey's new cemetery will be known as the Pine Hill Cemetery, which is beautifully located 1.5 miles north of town. Mr. Randolph and one other party whose name is illegible in the article surveyed the 2.5-acre plot. The article states that soon lots and driveways will be put in. The article also states that Mrs. J. H. Moran was president of the Cemetery Association at the time. There are also several other articles, later printed, announcing the group gathering and cleaning the cemetery on a regular basis. There were funds collected for this purpose. On May 15, 1926, the cemetery property was deeded to the city of New Port Richey. At this point, the cemetery's maintenance became the responsibility of the city of New Port Richey, along with the help from family members of the deceased. It still remains this way today. On June 6, 1930, the New Port Richey Press reported, "Inquiry elicited the information from Cusselman A. J. Powells, who is in charge of the cemetery, that the first person buried in Pine Hill Cemetery was C. E. Friel, a federal soldier, in 1917. Since then there were buried in the soldier's plot, Moses Gray, Hiram Seeley, John Dalby, Allen B. Feckler, S. B. Davis, and J. B. Huff. In addition, learn the history of Moses Gray private or family plots, Benjamin Garrett, John O. Humphrey and John W. Gurney. At present there are but 2 stone markers in the soldier's plot. The government furnishes these stones free upon proving the identity of the soldier and his service to the United States. Councilman Powells is anxious to learn the war history of Moses Gray, C. E. Friels, and John Dalby, and would appreciate any information given, or he would like to be put in touch with any of their friends. The first burial at Pine Hill Cemetery is identified as C. E. Friel in the above 1930 newspaper article and is identified as Clifford E. Friels on the historical marker at the cemetery. Census and death records reveal that he was Columbus E. Friels, born March 17, 1839, in Morgan, Tennessee. He married Lola Teals. He is shown in Kansas in early records, in Cordial, Georgia, in 1900, and in Rogersville, Tennessee, in 1910. In the 1910 census he is described as a salesman of Singer sewing machines. He died in Pasco County on June 7, 1917. The death certificate does not identify the place of burial. Information for the death certificate was provided by Mrs. C. E. Friels of New Port Richey. For many years this cemetery suffered at the hands of numerous vandals. What the vandals didn't get, the lawn mowers did. There are a number of unmarked graves in this cemetery, many that at one time had temporary metal markers for them. The cemetery has been recently cared for and is in much better condition than it was in the days past. There are still many signs of past neglect that can be seen through unmarked graves and broken headstones. There are many establishing members of the cities of Port Richey and New Port Richey interred here, making this a historic cemetery. This is one of the few cemeteries in Pasco County that contains no burials of Confederate soldiers. However, the cemetery includes more than 10 Union soldiers interred here. Thank you to all those who stopped by our History Travel channel to learn about the interesting history of Pine Hill. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button so you can updates on our next historical videos of Port Richey, Florida. Thanks for watching Gulf Coast Entertainment.